Also, let's move over to the global digital currency market where nearly $20 trillion worth of Bitcoin and other digital currencies were traded in the year 2024 that just ended. And that's roughly $1.5 trillion on a monthly basis, with Bitcoin leading the pack in terms of pricing at a record $100,000. Let's do a quick recap of the roaring crypto year and a bit of future forward. 2025 now with my guest here in the studios. Atose, the CEO at KoinKoin, Nigeria's premier digital assets exchange app. A great evening to you. Welcome.
Yes.
It's been about a year that you were here last. And then I was asking a bit of questions about when and how the market was moving. You folks made a whole lot of money this year. You beat in my stock market. And then I just got jealous. $100,000 on the Bitcoin.
Right.
That was Olympian, to put it the best. But summarize the digital currency year for me, as it were, that just ended. Give me a summary.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me and Happy New Year. So, quick summary, 2024, great year. We started the year off with the Bitcoin spot ETFs,
Yes.
which were approved by America's SEC. Earlier on in the year, so that sort of started Bitcoin off on a good trajectory. But the big rise really came on the re-election of one President Donald Trump. What the market is choosing to call Trump euphoria, or as I've chosen to call it, Trumphoria. Since he's been re-elected, we've seen over a $30,000 gain in Bitcoin. So of course, it's all in all been a very good year. And with some of the news we're hearing on the horizon, things like Bitcoin as a reserve asset, a strategic reserve asset, we think the price can only go higher.
That's going to be another major bull's eye, isn't it?
Indeed it is.
If Bitcoin goes from just being an asset to being a reserve currency, in a manner of speaking.
Yes.
That's going to blow the lead off.
Indeed. And when we spoke a year ago, Bitcoin was priced at $43,000. And I remember saying at the time that I'm not a financial advisor, but if I were a financial advisor, I'd consider buying some Bitcoin. Well, a year later, we're now at $94,000 currently. I believe I have to say the same thing again. Hopefully, whoever listened last year is listening again and are going to double up. And of course, we welcome everyone at home to reach out to us at KoinKoin. We're more than pleased.
It's been a good year so far. We've seen Nigeria's SEC, even the Nigerian exchange, yes. Everyone warming up very quickly and looking for perhaps it's going to be a Bitcoin asset listed on the Nigerian exchange maybe this year. The NESD over the counter is also welcoming digital currency assets. So once the regulator gets on board, looks like everybody's also on board. But if we look at the year 2025, just to move on quickly, if you look at the challenges and opportunities in the new year, we never knew Donald Trump was going to win the election. But here he is, he's going to be sworn in the next 2 weeks or thereabouts. So what's your outlook?
Well, the outlook is good. There's 3 states in America who have already created some sort of legislation. So Pennsylvania, Texas, and Ohio have a Bitcoin Reserve Act already, right? So there are some legislators in the states who are potentially preparing for it. We know that the Fed has said things like, we don't know what we're going to do with Bitcoin with regards to Bitcoin becoming a reserve asset, that it will be up to Congress. But we also know that we have a pro-Bitcoin Congress in the States right now. So at the moment, it's all
and a pro-Bitcoin president.
And a pro-Bitcoin president.
In the White House.
In the White House. So it's a big shift. It's a massive change on how money works. I'm personally glad that Nigeria is also at the forefront. Nigeria, as you may know, is number 2 after America for creation of wallets, and number 2 after India in terms of use of, digital assets. So I think there's a massive opportunity for all Nigerians, opportunity for wealth creation for everyone, all from the highs of our society, to everyone else.
I'm just trying to find out, why did Bitcoin rally so strongly as Donald Trump got reelected in November? What's the correlation?
So there's a number of things. Bitcoin had reached sort of it peaked at a particular resistance around momentum, 69K, yes. And it hit it a number of times. We just needed one bit of fundamental news to break through. And once the breakthrough came, it's just been going in one direction ever since. We peaked at 108,000 a couple of weeks ago, and we've retraced to, I think right now, about $94,000. Which is still double where we were last year.
Long-term performance for Bitcoin and other assets in that basket, as well as hedge against inflation. Do you think there's still a whole lot more appeal out there for more folks on the planet, the 9 billion of us, to get on the bandwagon?
Of course. I mean, other than the Americans, the Swiss are also looking at using Bitcoin as a reserve asset, and the view is, if the Americans make the move, a number of other sovereign nations will also make the move and make Bitcoin a reserve asset. That would change things a lot. And I know we're talking about $94,000 at current price. I mean, multiply that by 5 quite easily. I'm not saying I'm not making any predictions, but the future looks very green, and I for one want to see Nigerians win in this market, because we are heavily involved.
Yeah, the Nigerian government officials outside the market on the political scene and others, it looks like everyone's a friend of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies or digital assets. How much more would you like to see from the Nigerian end in the new year, starting today?
Well, we've had a lot of support from the SEC under Dr. Agama. We've seen robust regulations, what I'd call smart regulations for the space, whether you're into ICOs, STOs, exchange, or custodianships. Yeah. So we've seen a lot of regulations which I think work and are in line with the global standard. The standard is quite high. And I think that gives all of us, those of us in the business and those who have an interest to invest, it protects us all and gives us all an opportunity. So we'd like to see more of that. We at CoinCoin want to work more closely with the SEC. We wish to work with some of the traditional banks here as well to help them come onto the space and to give them more for their balance sheet. So we see a lot of movement in that space in the coming months.
What about institutional adoption? Chat to me about that. Institutional adoption of Bitcoin this year and the expected price movement.
Yes. So with regards to institutions, Wall Street has shown a lot of interest. We know Barclays, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan already have some sort of interest in this space. They're working with a number of the buy-side hedge funds like BlackRock, of course, who have their own spot ETF. So there's a lot of adoption, a lot of interest. Bitcoin is being held as digital gold, if you like, a store of value, right? But yeah, it's all good news. One thing I will note, however, is with the creation of Google's quantum chip, the encryption, that Bitcoin is based on, could potentially be up to question. But with technology, there's always innovation. Yeah. Thus far, it's been very good, and I see more innovation in that space to ensure the encryption.
In terms of innovation, talk to me about CoinCoin Global a network and what you folks are looking how to position in this industry that is very dynamic. It's just early days yet, or early years, as it were, globally speaking, as far as digital currency adoption and the technology behind it and how much we can achieve.
Of course.
It's like going to the moon and back and beyond. Navigating the entire galaxies in the manner of speaking in terms of virtual assets and what it can do for each one of us, wealth creation, support governance, and things like that. What are you looking at to raise your game in this new year?
Well, we've already had, as you say, it's still early years. There's been a lot of mistakes made, and we've learned from the mistakes of others. Our focus right now is on building out our retail platform, which we have in the app stores right now, CoinCoin app. It's very versatile. It does everything the regulators want it to do with regards to KYC, KYB, or whatever you have. But we've also created it in such a way that we can API directly into your bank, for example. So, for example, you buy Bitcoin from us, but you want to custody it with your bank. That's something that we're working on. We think it's the strategic approach. We feel that Nigerians, I think there's about 30 or 40 million odd Nigerians with interest in crypto. We think that number will double, where Nigerians feel that, so I bought Bitcoin from you, but I can save it with my bank. That's great, because I know where my bank is. But you, Mr. Exchange, we don't know where you are. So we're trying to make it easier for Nigerians. And of course, we are a global firm. We do a lot in Africa and across the world. We're trying to make it easier for everyone.
It's part of the getting my Bitcoin and I can get Naira value for it.
Indeed.
I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the idea is to get Naira value for it. The idea is to be able to see, so you buy some today, where are we, next week with inflation? You've been able to basically hold more value. You can see the Naira value. That's the sort of stuff that we're working on. And again, we want to be aligned closely with the SEC on this. And of course, we want to work with the local banks as well.
I would like to see one of you in the Bitcoin digital currency listed on the stock exchange, as it were. How would that work?
Well, so there's a number of ways that would work. So, for example, digital assets in and of themselves can be, we could easily digitize our shares, and the real world asset value, we can tokenize our company shares. We hope to do that, and at some point, we certainly look forward to be listed on NGX. So we are certainly open to traditional investors who perhaps don't know a lot about Bitcoin but want to get involved. We welcome them to join us, and we welcome them to reach out to us, and we'll work with them and take it to the next level.
If I'm a Bitcoin cryptocurrency person, should I keep an eye on certain developments next year? What the policies will be out of the White House, interest rate change from the Fed, inflation outlook in the US and all that.
Yes.
Do you think there could be some volatility in the new year?
Indeed. So we note that there was a bit of a tick up in inflation figures just as the year was running out in the States. And of course that, did cause a sort of a temporary drawback in the price of Bitcoin. But then we saw the PCE figures come out the next day, and they were pretty good, so Bitcoin then went back up. So there will be that sort of short-term knee-jerk reaction to inflation figures, but ultimately the long-term view is still very positive. We see more inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs, and of course we see companies like MicroStrategy and other companies now who are constantly buying Bitcoin and holding on.
I'm just thinking, how much Bitcoin will cost on the inauguration day?
Well, it may be a little bit more than it is right now, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, January the 18th.
Well,
I'm going to keep an eye on Bitcoin that day.
We have to keep an eye on. We have to see what happens. I think the euphoria will carry on for a while, but we then need to look at the policy to determine what happens next.
What happens next?
If things don't come as quickly as we hope, there is a CME gap at $77,000. So even if Bitcoin pulls back to $77,000, it's a massive opportunity to go long.
To come in, to get into that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm keeping one permanent ear and one eye on you guys. Thank you.